Hi, today we are going to be unboxing a Nuvo TooT. This is supposed to be one step up from recorder and one step down from flute. So right out of the box, it comes in a pretty nice case. It says Nuvo TooT on it. Also, just for reference, I do teach elementary schoolers, so I probably am not gonna call this a toot to them because I don't think they'll stop laughing long enough for me to explain what it is. But this toot, which I will probably call them flutes in my classroom once I introduce them, we don't have any actual flutes, real metal flutes to compare it to, so it's not gonna be confusing to call this a flute. This is a very nice case though, and it comes with a little placard where you can write the student's name. Inside the case, well, it opens up all the way like this, and there's a little strap here, I'm assuming to hold in either the flute or these little pieces that just fell out. So let's look at these pieces first. We've got a lip plate. If you're wanting to play more like a traditional flute, there's a lip plate. And then this little piece is used to remove the plate that's on the instrument so that you can exchange it out with the other one. So this does come with two types of lip plate. The one that comes on it is more similar to an actual recorder. So you put it in your mouth, and this mouthpiece funnels the air perfectly so that it makes a good sound on the instrument. It also comes with a fingering chart. So I made this little side-by-side fingering chart that compares the recorder, the toot, and the flute fingerings so you can see how alike and how different they are. If you look at the very beginning where there's C, C sharp, D, and E flat, all of those fingerings are very similar. They're almost identical, especially in relation to the recorder and the toot. Now the flute itself has different keys that you can play, so it is a little tiny bit different, but still mostly the same. Once you get up into the E, that's where the toot fingerings sort of go in a different direction than the recorder fingerings. So you can see at the very bottom of the toot fingering, the last key is pressed down, which is different than recorder, but the same as flute. Okay, so that's where it starts to get more flute-esque rather than recorder-esque, but I do think this would be a great transition fingering for someone who already knows how to play recorder and they eventually want to play the flute. Then this fingering here in the toot is sort of setting them up for that future fingering that they'll need on the flute. So they use that last key pressed down in the pinky from E all the way up to the C sharp above that, just like a normal flute does. I'd say the fingerings that are the most different from each other are the accidentals, the F sharp, A flat, B flat, C sharp, E flat, F sharp. Those notes are going to be slightly different in the fingerings than the other instruments. But the diatonic notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, those are mostly the same. So that's going to be really useful for an elementary schooler who might not play a lot of accidentals or chromatic notes to begin with. You can also see the higher C, C5. That one's not the exact same across those three instruments. When we get to the high D, D5, that is where the toot fingerings start looking way more like flute fingerings than recorder fingerings. So if you look at that D5, you'll see the recorder fingering and the toot fingering are very different from each other, but the toot fingering and the flute fingering are very similar to each other. So it seems for the most part, the lower notes, the recorder and toot fingerings are very similar, and then the higher notes, that's where the toot and flute fingerings are very similar. Overall though, I do think going from recorder to the toot is not going to be too challenging. They will have to learn new fingerings, but they're similar to the ones they already know, so I don't think that will be hard. And then by the time the toot players are ready to step up into the flute, then they're very used to those toot fingerings, and then they'll just have to make a few little more changes until they're fully transitioned into the flute fingerings. So overall, I do think the toot is a great bridge into connecting the recorder fingerings and the flute fingerings. Lots of information on the other side. Playing your first notes, cleaning the instrument, switching lip plates. This instrument does come in multiple colors, the base being white, but this color part can be pink, blue, or green, and I think there's also a black body option. This one's clearly white body with pink accents. So everywhere that's white is plastic and everywhere that's pink is silicone. Before we listen to what it sounds like, I will note that these bottom two tone holes have a black piece in them that can come out, and so does the tone hole on the back of the instrument. I'm leaving them in for now, and then I will take them out so we can see what it sounds like without them. Just for context, I am an elementary school music teacher, so I do play recorder frequently. I am not a flute player, so just wanted to give that disclaimer before I play this flute type instrument. Go ahead and take them out. Now that I have these black pieces taken out, I will be able to half hole to make chromatic notes. So C sharp, E flat, F sharp, notes like that. Let's see if we can make some chromatic notes this time. So the fingering chart starts on C4, middle C, and goes up to G5, which is what I just played. I do like the tone of this slightly better than a soprano recorder, but it is very comparable to what a soprano recorder sounds like. You can even put vibrato on it if you want to. I'm gonna play some songs from Recorder Karate just so you can see what this sounds like in action. I'm gonna start with Hot Cross Buns. I'm gonna play it now with the pinky key pressed down so you can hear if that makes a difference to you or not. Alright, I'm going to attempt to change the lip plate. So I'm going to stick the smaller end underneath this little dimple here. Got it. So that's what it looks like. This one has a little dimple as well, so I'm going to put that on the same side the previous one was on. Snaps right into place. All right, now let's see what it sounds like if a recorder player tries to play with the more traditional flute lip plate. Again, I'm not a flute player, so I'm anticipating that this isn't exactly gonna sound great, but this is probably a good representation of what your students would sound like if they tried to play with this lip plate. You can clearly hear that that doesn't sound as great as the first Lip Plate did. What I would expect this to look like for teachers who want to use this in their general music classrooms, their elementary school classrooms, is students would start on soprano recorder, and if they're doing a really great job with it and they need an extra challenge and you have these available, I would let them step up into this instrument with this lip plate. Not the traditional flute type lip plate, but the more recorder-esque lip plate. And then if they're doing a really fantastic job with this eventually, after a few lessons or a few weeks, then you can have them try the more traditional flute lip plate. I would assume if they've never played a flute before, this is gonna take them longer to master. But if they still master that, I would, at that point, if you have a real flute available, then to let them try that. Thank you so much for watching today, and happy playing. Bye.